nice. Come up to the fire, ladies.
I'm not cold. Now, before we move things about, Mr. Hale, why don't you tell Mr. Henderson what you saw when you came here yesterday morning?
And, things are just as they were left yesterday.
It's just the same. When it dropped below zero last night, I thought I ought to send Frank over here this morning to make a fire for us. But no use getting pneumonia with a big case on. But I told him not to touch anything except the stove. And you know Frank.
Mr. Hale, please tell me what happened exactly when you got here yesterday morning.
Well, Harry and I had started to town with a load of potatoes. Now, we came along the road from my place, and as we got here, I said, I'm going to see if I can't get John Wright to go in with me on a party telephone. Now, I had spoken to Wright about it once before, and he had put me off, saying, folks talk too much anyway, and all he asked for was peace and quiet. Well, I'm sure you know about how much he talked himself, but I thought maybe if I came to the house and spoke about it before his wife, although I did say to Harry that I wasn't sure as to what his wife wanted made much difference to John.
Mr. Hale, I'd like to talk about that later, I really would, but just get on with saying with what you were, what happened when you got to the house yesterday.
Well, I didn't hear or see anything. We came up to the door and still it was all quiet inside. I knew they must be up. It was past 8 o'clock, so I knocked again, and well, this time I thought I heard somebody say, come in. Like, I wasn't sure, and I'm not sure yet, but I opened the door, this door, and there, in that rocker, sat Mrs. Wright.
And what was she doing?
Oh, well, she was rocking back and forth, and she had her apron in her hand, and she was kind of pleating it.
And, how did she look?
Well, she looked, queer.
Queer how?
As if she didn't know what she was going to do next, and, kind of done up.
And, how did she seem to feel about your coming?
Why, well, I don't think she minded one way or the other. You know, she didn't pay much attention. I said, how do, Mrs. Wright? It's cold, ain't it? And she said, is it? She just kind of went on pleating her apron. Well, I was a little surprised she didn't ask me to come up to the stove or to sit down, but she just sat there. She wasn't even looking at me. I said, can I see John? And at that, she laughed. I guess you'd call it a laugh. I thought of Harry and the team outside, so I said a little sharp, can't I see John? No, she said kind of dull-like. No, said I. Ain't he home? Said I was out of patience. Yes, he's home. Well, then why can't I see him? Asked I. Because he's dead. Said she. Dead, said I, and she nodded her head, not getting a bit excited. I said, well, where is he? I didn't know what to say, and she pointed upstairs. Like that. And just went on, pleating her apron. I went out and I called Harry. I thought I might need help. We went upstairs, and sure enough, there it was.
Mr. Hale, I'd rather you get into that upstairs where you can point it all out. Just go on now with the rest of the story.
Well, my first thought was to get that rope off. It looked, but Harry, he went up to him, and he said, no, he's dead all right, and we better not touch anything. So we came back down the stairs, and she was still sitting there, that same way. Has anyone been notified? I asked. No, she said, unconcerned. Who did this? Mrs. Wright asked Harry, and he said that businesslike, and so at that she stopped the pleating of her apron. I don't know. She said, you don't know? Said Harry, no. She said after him. Well, I mean, weren't you sleeping in the bed with him? Asked Harry, and She said, yes, but I was on the inside. Someone came to his bed, put a rope round his neck and strangled him, and you didn't wake up. I didn't wake up, she said. Now, we must have looked as though we didn't see how that could be, for after a minute she said, I sleep sound. Harry was going to ask her a few more questions, but I thought maybe we ought to let her tell her story first to the sheriff or the coroner, so Harry went fast as he could to Rivers' place with his telephone.
And, what did she do when she knew you had gone for the coroner?
Well, she moved from that chair to this one. Over here, and she just kind of sat there, looking down with her hands held together. I thought I ought to make some kind of conversation, so I said I had come to see if John would go in with me on a telephone, and at that she laughed. And then she looked at me, scared. I don't know, maybe it wasn't scared. I wouldn't like to think it was, but look, Harry was going to be back soon, and then you came, and Mr. Peters, and well, I guess that's all I know that you don't.
I think I'd like to start upstairs first and then work our way outside into the barn and around there. Everything is just as the way it was left yesterday, and there's nothing else around here that could be of any use to us?
Nothing here but kitchen things.
Well, here's a fine mess.
Oh, her fruit, did it freeze? She worried that when the fire went out, it would get cold and her jars would break.
Wow, can you beat the woman? Held for murder and worried about her preserves.
Well, she may have more than preserves to worry about by the time we're done.
Women are used to worrying over trifles.
Yes, and for all their troubles, what would we do about the ladies, though? Dirty towels. Not much of a housekeeper, would you say, ladies?
There's a great deal of work to be done on a farm.
To be sure. And yet I know of some Dixon County farmhouses which do not have such towels.
Those towels get dirty awful quick. Men's hands aren't always as clean as they might be.
Ah, loyal to your sex, but you and Mrs. Wright were neighbors. I suppose you were friends, too.
I've not seen much of her of late years. I've not been in this house. It's more than a year.
Why is that? You didn't like her?
I liked her all well enough. Farmers' wives have their hands full, Mr. Henderson. And then...
Yes.
It never seemed a very cheerful place.
No. It's not very cheerful. I shouldn't say she had the homemaking instinct.
Well, I don't know as Wright had either.
You mean they didn't get along?
No, I don't mean anything. But I don't think a place would be any cheerfuler for John Wright's being in it.
I'd like to talk more of that later. But I'd like to get the lay of things upstairs first.
I suppose anything Mrs. Peters does will be all right. She must have taken some clothes for her, you know, and a few little things. We left in such a hurry yesterday morning.
Yes, but I would like to see what you take and keep an eye out for anything that might be of use to us.
Yes, Mr. Henderson.
I'd hate to have men coming into my kitchen, snooping around and criticizing. Of course, it's no more than their duty. Duty's all right. But I guess that deputy sheriff that came out to make the fire might have got a little of this on. Wish I'd thought of that sooner. It seems mean to talk about her for not having things slicked up when she had to come away in such a hurry. She had friends there. She was going to put this wonder if it's all gone. Why, I think there's some here that's all right, Mrs. Peters. Yes, here. Oh, this is cherries, too. I declare I believe that's the only one. She'll feel awful bad after all her hard work in the hot weather. I remember the afternoon I put up my cherries last summer.
Well, I must go get those things from the front room. Will you come with me, Mrs. Hale? You can help me carry them. My, it's cold in there.
Wright was close. I think maybe that's why she kept so much to herself. She didn't even belong to the Ladies' Aid. I suppose she felt she couldn't do her part, and then you don't enjoy things when you feel shabby. She used to wear pretty clothes and be lively. When she was Minnie Foster, one of the town girls singing in the choir. But that was 30 years ago. This all you was to take in?
This and an apron. Funny thing to want, for there isn't much to get you dirty in jail. I suppose it just made me feel more natural. She said it was under this table here. And her little shawl behind the door.
Mrs. Peters,
Yes, Mrs. Hare?
do you think she did it?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I don't think she did. Asking for an apron and her little shawl? Worrying about her fruit?
Mr. Peters says it looks bad for her. And Mr. Henderson is awful sarcastic. He'll make fun of her for saying she didn't wake up.
Well, I guess John Wright didn't wake when they was slipping that rope under his neck.
But it's such a strange way of doing it. Rigging it all up like that.
That's just what Mr. Hale said. There was a gun in the house. He says that's what he can't understand.
Mr. Henderson said what's coming up as needed is something to show anger or sudden feeling.
I don't see any signs of anger around here. It's wiped to here. I wonder how they're finding things upstairs. I hope she had it a little more read up there. You know, it seems kind of sneaky, locking her up in town and then coming out here and trying to get her own house.
Mrs. Hale, the law is the law.
I suppose it is. Better loosen up your things, Mrs. Peters. You won't feel them when you go out.
Oh, look at this. She was piecing a quilt.
Ah, it's log cabin pattern. Pretty, isn't it? I wonder if she was going to quilt it or just not.
They wonder if she was going to quilt it or just knot it.
Well, Frank's fire didn't do much up there, did it? Why don't we go outside and get everything cleared up at the barn?
I don't know, as there's anything so strange, our taking up our time with little things while we're waiting for them to get the evidence. I don't see as it's anything to laugh about.
Of course, they've got awfully important things on their mind.
Mrs. Peters, look at this one. Here, this is the one she was working on. And look at the sewing. All the rest of it has been so nice and even. And here, this is all over the place. Why, it looks as if she didn't know what she was about.
Oh, Mrs. Hale, what are you doing?
Just pulling out a stitch or two that isn't so very good. Bad sewing always made me fidgety.
I don't think we ought to touch things.
I'll just finish up this end. Mrs. Peters,
Yes, Mrs. Hale?
what do you suppose she was so nervous about?
I don't know. I don't suppose she was nervous. I sew awful quick when I'm just tired. Well, I must get these things wrapped up.
sing real pretty herself.
Seems funny to think of a bird here, but she must have had one outside the cage.
I suppose maybe the cat got it?
No, she had that feeling some people get about cats. Being scared of them. My cat got into her room one time and she asked me to take it out.
My sister Bessie was like that. Queer, ain't it?
Why, look at this. The door's broke. Somebody's pulled it off its hinges.
Oh. Looks as if someone must have been rough with it.
Why, yes.
Oh, I wish if they were going to find any evidence they'd be about it. I don't like this place.
I'm awfully glad you came with me, Mrs. Hale. It would have been so lonesome here by myself.
It would. Wouldn't it? But I tell you what I do wish, Mrs. Peters. I wish I had come over here sometimes when she was here. I wish I had.
Oh, but you were awfully busy, Mrs. Hale, with your house and your children.
I could have come. I stayed away because it weren't cheerful. And that's why I ought to have come. I've never liked this place. Maybe because it's down in a hollow and you don't see the road. I don't know what it is. But it's a lonesome place and always was. Oh, I wish they had come to see Minnie Foster sometimes. I can see now.
You mustn't reproach yourself, Mrs. Hale. Sometimes we don't know what's wrong with other folks until something comes up.
Not having children makes less work. But it makes a quiet house. Right out to work all day. No company when he did come in. Did you know John Wright, Mrs. Peters?
Not to know him. I've seen him in town. They say he was a good man.
Yes. Good. He didn't drink. He kept his word as well as most, I guess. He paid his debts. But he was a hard man, Mrs. Peters. Just to pass the time of day with him. Like a raw wind that gets to the bone. I should think she would have wanted a bird. But what do you suppose went with it?
I don't know. Suppose it got sick and died.
You weren't raised around here, were you? You didn't know her?
Not till they brought her in yesterday.
She, come to think of it, she was kind of like a bird herself. Real sweet and pretty, but kind of timid and fluttery. How she did change. But I tell you what, Mrs. Peters, why don't you take the quilt in with you? It might take up her mind.
Why, that's a fine idea. And I don't suppose they could object to it. What should I bring in? Maybe some patches?
Well, I suppose this has got sewing things in it. Ah, what a pretty box. Looks like something somebody would give you. Maybe her scissors are in here. Oh, why? Why? There's something wrapped up in this piece of silk.
Why, those ain't her scissors.
Oh, Mrs. Peters! It's the bird! But Mrs. Peters, look at it! Its neck, look at its neck, it's on other side too!
Somebody wrung its neck.
Well, ladies, have you decided whether she was going to,
We
quilt it or not it?
we think she was going to knot it.
Huh. Is there a bird?
We think the cat got it.
No. Is there a cat?
Not anymore. They're suspicious, you know. They leave.
Well, that's interesting, I'm sure. I'd like to go upstairs again and make sure we go over everything piece by piece. So, it had to have been somebody who knew the exact layout of the house. Areas with all windows, no footprints, their own rope.
She liked the bird. going to bury it in that pretty box.
When I was a girl, my kitten, a boy with a hatchet, before I could get to her, if they hadn't held me back, I would have hurt him.
I wonder how it would seem never to have had any children around. No. Wright wouldn't like the bird. A thing that sang. She used to sing. He killed that too.
We don't know who killed the bird.
I knew John Wright.
It was an awful thing that was done in this house, Mrs. Peters. Choking a man, slipping a rope around his neck, choking the life out of him.
His neck choked the life out of him.
We don't know who killed him. We don't know.
If there had been years and years of nothing, and then a bird to sing to you, it would be awful. Still, once the bird was still,
I know what still is it. When we were southbound in Dakota and my first baby died, and me with no other eye.
how soon do you suppose they'll be through? Looking for the evidence?
I know what still is it. And the law has got to punish the crime, Mrs. Hale.
I wish you'd seen Minnie Foster when she wore a white dress with blue ribbons and stood up there in that choir and sang. Oh, I wish I had come over here once in a while. That was a crime. That was a crime. Who's going to punish that?
We mustn't take on.
I might have known she needed help. I know how things can be for women. I tell you, it's queer, Mrs. Peters. We live close together, and we live far apart. We all go through the same things. It's just a different kind of same thing. If I were you, I wouldn't tell her fruit was gone. Tell her it ain't. Tell her it's all right. Take this in to prove it to her. She may never know whether it was broke or not.
My, it's a good thing the men aren't here. Wouldn't they laugh, us getting all stirred up over a dead canary? Wouldn't they laugh?
Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't.
No, Peters, it's all perfectly clear, except for a reason for doing it. But you know, juries, when it comes to women, if there was some definite thing, something to show, something to make a story about, something to connect up with this strange way of doing it.
Well, I've got the team around. Pretty cold out there.
No, can you send Frank out to get me later? I'm going to stick around a while. I'm not convinced we can't do better.
Do you want to see what Mrs. Peters is going to take in?
Oh. No, these aren't very dangerous things that Mrs. Peters has picked out. She doesn't need supervising. After all, the sheriff's wife is married to the law. Did you ever think about it that way, Mrs. Peters?
Not just that way.
Married to the law. I want you to come in here a minute, George. We ought to take a look at these windows.
Oh, windows.
We'll be right out, Mr. Hale.
Well, at least we figured out she wasn't going to quilt it. She was going to. What do you call it, ladies?
We call it knotted.